All right, so Tenet is about. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I really did. Right? It was an adrenaline filled, suspenseful, tense thrill ride. All right? And it wasn't action packed the whole way through. All right? A lot of it was just exposition scenes or dialogue or just some quiet moments. But even that, with the blasting tense music, there was just this sense of dread in the air. It was palpable. The atmosphere of this film was just, it was like, it was film tension. That's what it was. It was just, it was like that. I was wound up like this watching this movie. And man, it's a time travel film. It's a time travel film. Now, I love time travel movies. You got Terminator, you got Back to the Future, you got, I guess Groundhog Day, in a sense. It's like some kind of temporal time warp that he's stuck in that movie. But this is unlike any of those movies. I've never seen a film that involves time manipulation like this movie, where it can be localized, it can just be affecting a certain object or a certain person only, while the rest of the world goes either in forward chronologically or backwards. It was done in such a way that was so sort of mind-bending that I was compelled throughout the whole movie to try and figure out what was going on. And a lot of times I was struggling, all right, because it was hard to catch all of the dialogue, all right? That it might have just been the sound mix in the cinema, I don't know. But I've got to rewatch this with subtitles because, man, I feel like I probably missed some very pertinent lines of dialogue in this movie. But this isn't a criticism of the film saying it's hard to follow or anything like that. It might just be me. Maybe I'm a bit slow when it comes to really intricate plots with a lot of moving parts. But I feel like the movie was made purposely to keep you engaged by not fully knowing what is going on. But again, that might just be me. Other people maybe fully comprehended it the first time through, and it was a piece of cake for them to unravel this film. For me, it was like an enigma, like a jigsaw puzzle. And the whole movie, I was trying to fit all the pieces together. And there were moments where I was trying to fully comprehend what was happening in the present scene, while at the same time my mind was trying to decipher what had just happened previously and to fit that into the plot where it belonged. And so I was constantly playing mental catch-up. It really kept the gears, the cogs turning in my rusted out brain, that's for sure. And that's a testament to Nolan, and I'm not a huge Nolan fan. I really am not. I only really like a couple of his movies. I like Batman Begins. I like Memento a lot, and this feels like Memento in the sense that it's very jarring because in Memento everything's traveling in reverse, and in this movie you got some things traveling in reverse and other plot points going forward chronologically in the normal direction. And sometimes it's happening simultaneously. You got, one plot going this way, one plot going that way, and they meet and interact. And you even have characters doing this sometimes in the movie, because that is what happens a lot of times. There's a lot, and at moments my brain was like, "What the fuck is going on?" But I loved it. I loved every moment of trying to decipher what was happening. It was great. All right. Now, the plot of this was I felt so layered and masterfully unraveled that, like I said, it kept me on the edge of my seat the whole way through. All right, and I was in a recliner seat, but I still managed somehow to metaphorically and literally be on the edge of my seat. All right, and so it's about this sort of agent. He's a government agent. I believe he might be a CIA agent. John David Washington. Great performance. Denzel, you passed on some of your acting chops well to your son, I must say. All right. He's an agent, and he gets brought in to investigate or unravel this Tenet situation. He doesn't know what the hell it is at first, but eventually he finds out it's something to do with time manipulation, people from the future are somehow manipulating events in the past, and they're able to invert the entropy of certain items and objects and even people, so that these objects, items, and people are now moving chronologically backwards into the past instead of forwards into the future. But is that just from our perception? That's the other thing. This movie sort of left a lot of things I felt open to interpretation. But again, it could just be me. Maybe it was an open and shut case the way it was presented for everyone else. For me, it was very ambiguous and vague, some of the plot elements. And I liked that because it kept me on my toes. It kept me thinking and contemplating what was going on. And I haven't seen time manipulation or time travel done like that in this movie. And there is an element of time travel in this movie where they go in those rotating cylindrical rooms and then they come out, moving in reverse, which was, it's a mind bender. There's a lot of, with time travel films and stories, there's always paradoxes, always, like the grandfather paradox that is even discussed in this movie, where if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, do you cease to exist? And then how can you have gone back in time to kill your grandfather if by killing him you erase your existence? So how did you go back in time to kill him if you never existed? That paradox is presented in this movie, and it's not solved. It's left out open, up in the air and open. And a lot of the characters in this movie say, we don't know the implications of what we're doing fully. All we know is there's a threat from the future that if these 9 MacGuffin bombs of some kind are assembled, that it will wipe out existence somehow. It'll wipe out our temporal plane that we exist on. And Kenneth Branagh's character is central to this. He stole the show for me. Him and J.D. Washington together. John David Washington was a great protagonist, and that's literally his character's name. You never find out his name in the movie. He's just called the protagonist. And he played it in such a way where he came across as this friendly, charming, likable everyman, but at the same time he was a ruthless killer, a very competent agent when he needed to be. And he rode that line really, really well and made me really root for him, And Kenneth Branagh, man, he knocked his performance out of the park. This guy is so versatile and just, from a Shakespearean actor who can then play these amazing cinematic villains as well. He's British, but he's played Yanks. He's played, obviously Brits as he really is. And he's played Russians as well. I've seen him in a few movies play Russians, and he does the accent really well. From an outsider's point of view, it sounds like a Russian accent. And he just came across as so menacing in this. He had moments of extreme, outbursts of scenery chewing anger, which was warranted for his character, right? It worked. But he also had this underlying boiling rage below the surface, like his character was just seething with wrath, and it really came across as effective for his character. So testament to his acting was fantastic as Andre Sater. And his character is somehow trying to assemble. If I got the plot, because a lot of it went shoom, flying over my head, right? If I understood, he was trying to, through direction from someone in the future, I believe, but that wasn't disclosed who it was. He was trying to assemble these objects, these mechanisms that once together would allow him to somehow eliminate our dimension, our temporal plane of existence somehow. That part really went over my head. I must have missed the dialogue that fully explained it or it was left ambiguous on purpose. I don't know. But it was very compelling because it upped the stakes of the movie. Now all of a sudden, they weren't just trying to stop World War III. They were trying to stop the destruction of all existence that we know of. And so that upped the stakes and added a level of tension in this movie the movie was already suspenseful and tense up until that reveal. But once that was revealed, it just took it up to another level. They were fighting for the existence of everything, of existence. And it it made the film so much more compelling for me. And there was this sense of dread, even just from the start of the movie, before all of this was revealed. From the very first scene, I felt a sense of impending doom that our main character was somehow, paddling upstream trying to stop, but I kept feeling like he's not going to be able to stop this, And it seems like they did save the day at the end, but did they? I don't know. I don't know. Because they established the fact that somehow Andrew Sader, Kenneth Branagh's character, has set up a dead man's trigger with his Fitbit watch or whatever it is. So I guess it's linked to his heart rate. If he dies, this device is triggered once he gets the final piece in place, which they're trying to stop. And once that is triggered, if he dies, which he's planning on killing himself because he has terminal cancer, if he dies, all of existence is wiped out. So they were fighting against that. They were really trying to stop that from happening. And it got to the point where his wife was in on the plot as well, distracting him and trying to manipulate him. And then she ends up killing him. But I must have missed the part where I guess by deactivating that final element of the device, they were able to stop his dead man trigger from being effective. So she was able to kill him. And that way he didn't get the satisfaction of thinking that he died and ended the world. She didn't want him to have that satisfaction because he was a maniacal Machiavellian lunatic who wanted to take out because he couldn't enjoy life. He was willing to sacrifice the entire world. So they also could not enjoy life because he had the same belief with his wife. If he couldn't have her, no one could have her. He wanted to kill her as well. So I feel like he played that villain with such devilish delight that it'll be a memorable villain for me. I'll remember his character. And there were some great lines in this movie too. I got to say, there was the line where they said, I can't remember the code. They had this code word that had Twilight in it. The word Twilight. I hate the movies, Twilight. And it's funny because Robert Pattinson's in those, but he says it with John David Washington, and this code word establishes that they're in on this Tenet plot together. That was a cool line as well. I've got to remember what it was exactly when I watch this movie again, because I'm definitely watching this again to try and fully comprehend the intricacies of this plot. But also, there was a great line when John David Washington's character, the protagonist, goes to have dinner with Andre Sater, and Sater is just fuming because he thinks J.D. Washington is having an affair with his wife. And he just so calmly tells him how he's going to horrifically torture and murder him. And that scene was so good. He just delivered this threat, Kenneth Branagh did, so well. He just delivered it so effectively that even I was, I'm in the cinema going, oh, that fucking sounds horrible, what he's going to do to J.D. Washington. Ouch. But there's a moment in that scene, in their interaction, where Kenneth Branagh says, how would you like to die? And J.D. Washington goes, old. I love that. That line was fantastic. That's a memorable line. And I always criticize movies modern films for not having memorable dialogue. This movie had it. Because I remember that line. That line was a killer line. All right. And just the acting all around was great. Robert Pattinson's character was very compelling as well. And I feel like his character was ambiguous. Again, that could be me and not missing certain elements and things and clues maybe as to who he was exactly. But tell me if I'm wrong in the comments if you've seen this movie, all right? I assume you have if you're watching a spoiler review, right? I got the impression that Robert Pattinson's character, obviously he knew more than he let on. I got the impression, especially from the final shot as well, showing that woman, Andre Sader's wife and her son, I got the impression he was the young boy from the future, Robert Pattinson, and somehow he was able to come to the past. Now, it's not explicitly shown. That's just my ending theory, all right? That he came back from the past somehow to stop his father, all right? Now, I wondered, if they have access to the past from the future, right? And John David Washington's character, if he stops the evil plot masters from the future, if he stops their plan to end our existence in the past, right? What's to stop them, watching what he did from the future and then going back again and just erasing him, like the Terminator does. Goes back and erases John Connor from the past so that, he can't grow up and save humanity. Because John David Washington's character, the protagonist, was kind of like a John Connor. He's the savior of humanity. So what's to stop them from going back and just assassinating him when he's like a kid or something, or a baby even, or wiping out his mother like they tried to do with Sarah Connor in Terminator? I don't know. Like, the internal rules of this movie are very intricate. And I don't know if it was explained in the film. I may have missed it, where they somehow explained that you can go into the past, but maybe only to a certain point in time. Like, maybe they can only go back 20 years, 30, 40 years. They can't go back any further. That wasn't established, as far as I know. So I sort of left it open. Maybe he wasn't successful in stopping this plot. I don't know. And I kind of like the ambiguity. Usually I don't love ambiguity. I like things to be explained in movies, but sometimes it works well. And I felt like it worked well in this movie because it left it open for interpretation, where now I can, speculate and theorize and get the wheels turning in my head as to what really was going on. I like the idea that Robert Pattinson's character was the boy from the future come back into the past. And again, it's established they have these time machines, those cylindrical things, but it seems to only be able, you walk in and you come out and you're going now in reverse. So, but you're still you've only traveled, you're still within the same time frame. You're still in the present. You've just switched which direction in time you're going. So it wasn't established that they could actually come physically from the future and still be the same age they were in the future and exist in the past as that age. That wasn't established. So my theory is still up in the air. It's not confirmed or debunked yet. I guess there'll be a lot of channels doing their ending explained videos as though they know for sure. But I guess until Nolan comes out and explains what he meant by it all, we won't know for sure. So that's my theory for now. My speculation, or one of them at least. All right? Partway through the movie, my wife, who I was watching it with, she thought maybe Robert Pattinson's character, Neil, I think his name was, she thought maybe he was secretly the villain, orchestrating everything. But that didn't play out. He seemed to be a good guy by the end of the movie, because he helped them take out that final bomb device thing that would have allowed the wiping out of our timeline. All right, and it seemed to indicate that Indian woman, she knew a lot. I gotta really comprehend who her character was and how she was tied to her husband was an arms dealer who was somehow involved with this Tenet program as well. Like they were feeding him inverted munitions and weapons from the future to the past. And it was a very intricate plot, very intricate. A lot of moving parts, a lot of spinning wheels, and the way it all interacted with each other was fascinating. Fascinating, all right? The other thing, I don't know if it was a plot hole or, again, I missed something, but they seem to establish the internal rules of the movie were that if you get inverted and go back into the past, or you get inverted within your timeline and now everything around you is traveling in reverse while you're still traveling from your own perception forwards in time. This movie a lot of it was about perception, to the people traveling normally in their timeline, everything is normal, but to you, if you're inverted, they all look like they're going in reverse and vice versa. But it established that if you're the one who's inverted, you can't breathe the air of the timeline that is now going in reverse around you, the world, because, I don't know, somehow your lungs can't absorb the oxygen from the atmosphere or whatever, right? So you have to wear a breathing mask. But there were scenes where John David Washington's character is on a boat or in the boat's going in reverse. So I figured, well, he's in reverse now, but he wasn't using an oxygen mask, and then the next scene he is wearing one. So I don't know, was just the boat he was on, was that sort of an isolated temporal zone that was going backwards, and therefore he could still breathe the air because only the boat was inverted, just like only certain bullets or certain guns are inverted? I don't know. Oh, and I've got to say, I haven't even spoken about the action yet. That's how compelling the plot was of this movie, that, the action itself wasn't even the highlight for me, even though the action was pretty damn good, all right? The plane scene was very tense, and I really appreciated the fact that, unless that was the best bloody CGI I've ever seen. That looked like Nolan really slammed a real plane into a structure, a building at an airport. All right. So I appreciate him doing practical effects a lot in this movie because it paid off. It looked really real, unless that's just the best damn CGI ever. That looked like a real plane slamming into a building. And that looked fantastic. And also the fight scene where he's fighting himself. You don't find out until later. John David Washington is fighting himself in a suit and a gas mask. Watching that play out from normal linear John David Washington's perspective, not wearing the gas mask, and then watching that same scene play in reverse from his perspective, traveling in reverse chronologically, that was fantastic. All right, that was done so damn well. And also, so the fight scenes were great. And also the fight scene in the kitchen earlier on, where he fights those goons in the kitchen, that was just great. He just explodes into violence. He comes across as this sort of unassuming, sort of just friendly guy who doesn't look dangerous in this movie. But then he just explodes into violence and beats up all these Russian henchmen guys in such a flurry of blows. And he had a cheese grater on his fist at one stage, just slamming them in the face with it. That was great choreography, great fight scene. I appreciate the fact that there wasn't much shaky cam at all in this. Most of the action was just visceral and wide shots. Still, there was a couple of handheld shots, but they weren't like a Paul Greengrass movie, you know? It wasn't like vomit-inducing like a lot of action films are, and it wasn't 50 million cuts, you know, cut, because the action scene's happening. It was like longer takes and for you know, during the action scenes, and I appreciated that. Nolan is a good filmmaker. I just haven't loved all his movies. They just haven't done it for me. But this movie did it for me on first viewing, all right? It might just be the hype of getting back into cinema because I've been itching to get back. So maybe that's what I'm still riding the high from that. And the fact that this movie was just such a adrenaline thrill ride. But I enjoyed the absolute hell out of it. I love the way it portrayed time going forwards and backwards, like the chase scene on the highway as well was brilliant. The heist scene was great, where they locked the cars in using all the semi-trailers, and then he had to steal the MacGuffin item. And then the scene where the car was chasing him but going in reverse, that was just crazy. It was a real head twister, but it was so compelling to watch. I just couldn't peel my eyes off the screen. I didn't even want to blink. I didn't want to miss even a single detail. It was so good. I better wrap this up anyway. That's my opinion. I love this movie on first viewing. I got to watch it again to take it fully in. But check it out if you haven't watched it. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts on it. Tenet. Watch it. And thanks for watching this rambling, crazy-ass review of my first impressions. Please like, share, subscribe. Take care, be good, and I'll see yous later.